Good day, podcast community. I'm Pete Kane. People call me Podcast Pete. And we got a special guest on the show today. I've been wanting to find somebody with his mindset for years. Finally, we have him. So Terry and I met, and I was just intrigued by his story of moving into hypnosis. And I asked him if he'd be a guest, and he gratefully said yes. Thanks, Terry. So tell our viewers, because they didn't have that conversation. We had the first time I met you, and before we came on the air. Tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and then we'll get into the podcast.
My name is Terry Phoeicie, and basically I'm now, after a long career, I'm now a hypnotherapist. And I got into this because I wanted to serve people who have obstacles in their lives. Mm-hmm. Something that's, and when I say obstacle, what I'm referring to is something that stands in their way from them becoming or doing what they want to do, or becoming the best version of themselves, whether that be anxiety, a fear of some sort, self-doubt, anything along those lines. I'm able to help people clear those things and move on with their lives and do something fulfilling that excites them.
Ooh, I love every word of that. Let me just go back to when you you had a career, you retired, and you made a decision to serve and help people in a very important way, because we don't have to look very far to see there's a lot of anxiety out there.
Yes.
You look at LA, you look at these cities, and people are just burning down things. They're just yelling and screaming. It's just chaos. Mm-hmm. So when you decided that you wanted to go down that path, what was your reasons, or what drove you to do that?
Well, there's a couple. When I retired fairly abruptly. And one piece of advice I would give anybody that's thinking about retiring is make sure you have something to retire to, because what I had lost was, after much work on myself, what I had realized is I had lost my sense of purpose. Right or wrong, throughout the decades that I was in the workforce, my career became my driver. That was my identity. So after doing a lot of work, after I stopped doing that, I needed something to move into. And one of the things that I really enjoyed in the career that I had was helping people to, they wanted to be promoted or work in a different department or something like that, and helping them develop the skills or what they needed to do in order to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. So I really enjoyed that. And after I retired, I went into kind of a dark place. It was affecting my relationship, and it wasn't good. So I was watching TV one day, and I saw a hypnotherapist and on TV, and he talked about how he had helped others with similar things that were going on with me. Mm-hmm. So I contacted him, and I went to see him. And after the first visit, I was different. And just cleared away a lot of the clutter, got things out of the way, made me responsible for the things that I was responsible for, and the things that I wasn't responsible for helped me to shake them off. Mm-hmm. So that sent me down this path. Because I'm such a believer in hypnotherapy, because I'm a result of hypnotherapy. Mm-hmm. He started to offer training, so I took one of the training courses, and now I am where I am.
Wow. I love that. Not knowing that, I geek out when people get the results from something. They see the transformation that they personally went through. Mm-hmm. Then they see that if it helped me, it could help others. So when you made that decision, you said that relief or that weight off your shoulders, are you saying that you went one session and and things opened up for you? Like what did that person do to change that mindset that you were able to get results from?
So he helped me to clear away negative thoughts that I was having that was impacting my relationship.
Hmm.
And I'm married to the woman now that I was, in a relationship at the time. And I don't think without going to that, to seeing him and going through the hypnotherapy, I don't think that I would be in this relationship today had I not done that,
Hmm.
because it changed me profoundly. And like you asked, when I could tell driving home that something was different.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the negative thoughts that I was having, just beating myself up over different things that happened throughout my life, a lot of those were a lot less prominent, or they were gone completely.
Hmm.
And that is when I feel things shifted. And then I had like 5 more visits after that, sessions after that, and I got better each time.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically the main thing that it did was help me clear a lot of the negative voices and things in my head, and all the negative thoughts I was happening about blaming myself for the things that had happened in my life, where whether I did or whether I didn't, I can't change it now. So I'm in a better place as a result of that, because I was able to clear all that. And now I think more positively. I don't have the negative bias, which we all kind of have at some time in our life or not. And a lot of that is based on the fact that if you go way back to the beginning of humans, you know, the negative bias comes from, I need to protect myself, because if I walk out the cave and there's a tiger there, I'm dead. So it puts us on alert for all of these things that make us think that something bad is going to happen.
Yep.
We still have that. So unless we're cognizant of that and able to have tools to dispel those things and go, I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to get eaten by a tiger. That's crazy. So I need to be able to move past these things and be positive about where I'm going.
Yeah, I love that, and I wanted to that communicating that to our audience. I want them to hold on to that, because I have a mentor, and I'm always learning and growing and changing my beliefs. And when I heard him say, this was a couple years ago, we have between 12 and 60,000 thoughts that go through our head. Most of them are replaying the negative patterns, the negative thoughts of the past.
Yes.
What you said, which was so profound, is we can't change it. It's not like you can rewire the past. It's done. It's finished. It's the rear view mirror.
Right.
And if we don't get beyond the rear view mirror and look ahead, we're going to always play in our mind those negative things. And we don't even know it sometimes. It's subconscious, but
Yes.
we're playing it over, and that record, as it gets played over and over again, affects us. And
Yes.
we're finding so much about the brain that we never knew. They do brain scans of different types of people, and they will see patterns that are completely different in each brain. So it is there. It's making sure. And he said one other thing: if um, your thoughts are on fear, it's going to grow. So
Yes.
your thoughts are on, say, faith and courage. Like, I don't know what the next day is going to bring. So it doesn't help me to have that thought of the past, because it's not going to help me in the future. But the courage we get is when we let that grow. We let our muscle grow, that is based on faith and fear, faith and courage. So what would you say, like, let's go to relationships. So important that we have good, solid relationships. What do you think changed in your communication with the relationship part of you that you saw, an outcome that you liked?
There's it probably stems from well, doesn't probably, it does. It stems from the fact that in previous relationships that I had, there were some less than desired behaviors going on from the people that I was in relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
And I automatically, because it happened a couple of times, I had automatically put that same behavior on the person that I was in a relationship with now, even though it wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost like, I had conditioned my mind to think that everybody does this, so this person's going to do it too. And I needed to get away from that because it was ruining our relationship, and I take responsibility for it. And so once I was able to shake that off, our relationship blossomed into a beautiful relationship that we enjoy, and it gets better every day now because I'm able to, if those thoughts come back, I'm able to recognize, listen, this is one of those bad thoughts. You need to let that go. And I do.
I don't know if this enters here, but I ended a relationship of a lot of years, and I never knew what the word boundaries meant. Until I took a course recovering, and I geeked out on boundaries. Do you feel that you have established boundaries in your relationship, or is that not something that you have thought about much when it comes to your relationships?
I haven't thought about it too much, but I think they exist in every relationship, regardless if you recognize them or not. If you're having a discussion with somebody, and if the discussion is starting to get heated, that you should stop and walk away and go, let's talk about this another time when we both have more time to process what we're talking about, kind of a thing. I think those off the cuff, spur of the moment emotional things, because it's easy, people talk to me about anxiety, and I say, I just don't feel like I have a lot of anxiety in my life. If I do, it's acute anxiety. So I spike and then it's gone, kind of a thing. I need to recognize when I'm in a discussion with my significant other, that if I feel that spike coming on, it's time for me to stop. And, you can call that a boundary or just maybe common sense. But I think those boundaries exist, whether you realize it or not. Just based on upbringing or whatever, or watching other people, because that's how we learn the majority of what we learn. That you don't push that, you don't go past this point, and you need to recognize that. That's the way I approach it.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And that, I have, I geek out on the personal development part of the 4 human drivers that I go back to. And I was with I was with my Rotary. We had our annual event where we change over the leadership to the next year. And I was in a discussion with a person who's a high achiever, a high performer. And we were talking about, the nature of business. There's always adversity, there's always challenges, there's always problems. But I think when we get to the point, just what you said, where we have that peace about our behavior, because we've done a good job of changing that behavior that created the chaotic nature. And before we went on the air, we were talking about our country, LA, these city people are absolutely losing their minds.
Yes.
And over what?
Right.
And when you also said some of that you were talking about to our viewers, this seems to be common sense. Well, we have a phrase that we say, common sense is not common practice. It just isn't. So my question, how do you each day personally grow so you continue on the path that you're on of evolving? Like, I even think you said the future self, or you said something like that earlier. But how do you personally just keep growing in what you're doing?
I try to do a better job of recognizing and addressing the thoughts that I have and the actions that I take. And I kind of do an assessment of those pretty regularly. I'm not going to say every day, but pretty regularly. And I just try to be better than I was yesterday. You know,
Mhm.
I try to learn from the, if I get into a situation and afterwards I may feel remorseful about the way that I behaved, I think to myself, you could have done better with that. So next time, if something like that happens, I need to take a different approach. And this approach may be, X, Y, or Z. But I do spend a lot of time um, listening to podcasts, reading, doing things a lot around self-development. That's basically what I did for several years
Mhm.
to try to get myself in the right place to go back and try to understand what I wanted to do in the future. And this is how I ended up with what I'm doing now. In
Mhm.
my past, I was in manufacturing and operations management. So it was corporate world. It was grinded out, and back in the days, the last past 3 decades, it was your identity was your career success in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And what I realized after that is that um, that is not your identity. Your identity is who you are
Yeah.
as a person, and we all are kind of conditioned to say, so what do you do? Well, I do this for a living. That's the first thing that most of us say versus, you know, what do you do? Well, I love my significant other. I love my grandchildren. We spend a lot of time together. That's what I do. My occupation is this. There's a difference. And when you start to wear that badge of what your career is as who you are, when that goes away,
Yeah.
your identity goes with it.
Yeah.
And that's where I struggled for a long time. And that's why I did a lot of self development work and come to realize that my thinking was flawed. And so I worked on trying to make it better.
Ooh,
Still
that is
do.
so insightful for our viewers, because I'm 68, so my friends are retiring, have been retired. And so we'll have discussions about, like, I always say, take a year off to really find yourself. Find, you know,
Mhm.
I was a former golfer. I played golf 5 days a week and I ran. I
Mhm.
don't do either today. And I would always have, like, um, I couldn't understand it, but a guy that I grew up with, at 18, 19, 20, early 20s, we would play golf with another person and we would play all the time, compete, and just, geek out on just getting out there and trying to beat each other.
Yep.
Well, he had a back injury and he stopped playing for
Mhm.
years. And I couldn't understand how he could not play.
Yeah.
And he said something, I don't know if he said it or I thought it, is like, out of sight, out of mind. It wasn't until I had a stroke and could not play like I used to that it did get out of sight, out of mind. I don't have, like, I used to think every morning I'd get up early, work my butt off, and go out on the golf course at 5 o'clock. It was
Right.
it was my life.
Yes.
And when that is taken away, it is weird,
Yeah.
because you have to reset in some way. And I found podcasting and journaling to be kind of like, journaling's my running, podcasting is my golfing, because both of them challenge my thinking. They challenge, my learning, my desire to be better. And but I would never have thought I was especially meditation. I meditate before, after, during
Mhm.
the day. I was at the gym this morning, and I even meditate when I'm on the bicycle. Close my eyes and I just get centered. So,
Mhm.
do you do anything like meditation, journaling, anything like that that you
Yes.
have adopted that you could share with our viewers?
Yes, I do both. I meditate. I try to meditate every day. Usually it's in the morning. Usually it's shortly after I get up because your mind is still kind of in a dreamy state. You know, you're not really in a beta zone yet with your brain waves. You're still kind of in a theta, delta, kind of not a delta because you'd be asleep, but theta or alpha.
Hmm.
And so, you know, it just helps you open your mind a little better, I think, when you're kind of in that state still. So I try to do it early in the morning. So one of the first things I do when I get up is that's what I do as I meditate. You know, I follow a guided meditation right now. What it does is it helps me envision the future that I want.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a visionary kind of a thing. So you know, you create in your mind, you create the envisioned things that you want to see, where you want to see yourself in the future, and then at the end, you kind of see yourself in that vision. So it's kind of like real time. So you put yourself where you want to be, not where you are. So that's the meditation that I do. I do journal, and I try to do it every day, but I'm not. I haven't been successful at every day. But a lot of times it's just talking about, you know, what I do in journaling is I just talk about what's happening in my life. You know, if I'm working on a project, I jot down some ideas. You know, I probably need to build some more structure into my journaling, but that's what I do.
Ooh, I love it. I love it because I had a person on yesterday, and she was a lot into the holistic approach to life and has been doing it for 50 years. So we were talking about meditation. She opened my eyes to different types of meditation. And you're right, you have your guided, you have just, I try to do the work 50 minutes really hard and take a 10-minute break. And during those break, I try to get up, walk around, drink some water, and just kind of just get my thoughts together because I'm resetting for the
Yeah.
next 50 minutes. And I haven't gotten it down. I used to do it pretty religiously before my stroke, but I would set Pomodoras is what the thing. I would just set these 50-minute timers and go
Mhm.
hard for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
But what would you say, like when you're journaling, are you journaling what you learned? Are you journaling the future? Are you journaling just thoughts that you want to get out of your head?
Yeah. I would say mostly at this point, it's just thoughts I want to get out of my head. But I do talk about future things. Like I said, if I'm journaling about a project that I'm working on, like, you know, getting the hypnosis business going, um, I will do some of that as well. I will talk about meetings that I've had with people regarding that. I will talk about my family. I will talk about circumstances that are going on within my family and maybe some things I need to get off my chest, you know, that I don't need to really share with anybody else. I journal those kind of things as well.
Ooh, I love that. So when like let's say physical activities, has that changed at all, in your retirement, quote unquote, rebirth of what you're doing now? Do you do
Mhm.
anything more intentional that you didn't do before to physically be, going in the right direction?
Yes. You know, as I'm much more consistent when it comes to exercise. I, you know, I track my steps. I'm not, you know, I don't not have to kill myself to get 10,000 steps every day, but I do keep an eye on it just to make sure that I'm moving as much as I need to move.
Yeah.
But I do exercise 5 days a week, try to be active, you know, do projects around the house. I do those kind of things. I think, you know, as one person put it, as we gain wisdom, so to speak, in our lives, which is a nice way of saying as we get older, I think it's important to continue to move. I think that I've read several studies that have basically proved that the more you move and keep moving in life, the longer you're going to be around. So doing a lot of that. I try to take really good care of myself. I take supplements. I see a holistic type doctor. He's actually an MD, so he can prescribe medicine if I need it. But I do some supplements. I try to take really close. I keep a really close watch on the blood work. Like I do research when I get blood work done, when the doctor orders it, I do research on it to see the things that need to be adjusted and how do I go about doing that. So yeah, I try to take care of, because without your health, it's really difficult to achieve the things that you want to achieve.
Yeah, that is so true. My best friend I met on the podcast about 3 years ago, and she's a health and fitness coach. And when I was at Shepherd, they would come in and they'd take these wedges under your body to move you just enough where you wouldn't, I think it's get bed sores or something like that. But just the movement, just that tiny bit of movement was like, wow, or pull you up, just different things, because movement is medicine. And so I'm walking after dinner every day, but I'm walking like zigzagging. And so I called her and I said, help me understand, am I doing anything? Is this helping me to get back to where I want to be? And so she called a neuro health and fitness person, a friend of hers, and she said, no, it's not helping you, because you got to build your core and you got to get back to the professionals, a neuro trained physical therapist. Well, I'd already been through 5 of them. So it wasn't like I didn't understand physical therapy. But when I called a buddy of mine and I said, tell me more about, and she was at PT Solutions, wonderful person, the best ever. And I thought he was kind of biased because his daughter works for the same, physical therapy. So I thought he's just trying to help his daughter, but then when I went back, I scheduled, got the referral, all that kind of stuff, went back. And I said, what's the one thing I can do to get better? And she goes, intensity. I went, really? Nobody ever said that to me. And I've been through 2.5 years of physical therapy. So when I go there, she busts my butt. I'm sweating. I'm just like, my heart rate gets up, and that movement, it's just energizing. I do 4 hours, 2 hours, 2 times a week, an OT for an hour, a PT. But I'm telling you, I'm punching, I'm throwing these I'm moving. But I was just thinking in my own mind, I just got to keep moving. But I wasn't helping myself in what I wanted to do instead of seeking out the professionals. So tell our viewers, like, you've said so many profound things that I just, maybe it's me because I geek out on this stuff, but I think it's so important for our viewers to really grab hold of. There's probably about 10 lessons, and we'll figure out a way to make sure, because we can passively listen to things and we can actively listen to things. I do a better job today actively looking for things, like I program myself through AI when I'm writing a book. Give me the 5 points out of this book. I go audio, I get the audio version, I put it on 2x speed. I read it, and then finally I read it. And when I read it, things are just hitting me differently. I used to just read and I go, what the heck did I read? I didn't know, because I didn't know how to learn. So what would you say? Because I want to be able to let our viewers know how they can support you and get a hold of you to be able. Our country is in a weird time. It's chaos. There's anxiety. We came out of COVID, and now we're still recovering.
Yes.
So How can people get a hold of you? If you wouldn't mind telling our audio listeners or our people that are in the car, how can
Yeah.
they get a hold of you?
I would say the best way is probably at the email terry.phoeicie@gmail.com at this point. I'm like you and I talked before we got on the air. I'm working on getting a website stood up and that kind of thing, and you'll be seeing more and more of me as I continue to grow that. But right now, it's probably that email address is the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. All
And
right.
it's basically what I want to work with people. What I want to do, one of the things is that's really important to me, and I found that I was missing in my life when I retired was fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
It's I do things around the house. I help around the house. My wife is still in business, but I'm not. So, a lot of the chores fall on me. It's hard to find fulfillment in that every day, especially after months and months and years. So what I what I want to do is I want to help people to reach that level of fulfillment where they'll be content with what's going on in their life. Whether that's with adding things or subtracting things.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it is around thought. The majority is around thought. Thoughts are things. Nothing happened without a thought first.
Yep.
Look around you. Anything, a chair, a table, a house, any buildings.
Yep.
That all started with a thought.
Yep.
So thoughts are paramount, and
Okay.
we need to treat them as such.
Yeah, I totally geek out on that too. Now, as we finish up, I want you to, what would be the one thing you would want our viewers to take home from our time on the podcast? And can you connect them, what that one thing, to anything on the screen, which is aliveness, connection, meaningful purpose, and personal growth? Is there
Mhm.
anything you would want our viewers to take home?
I think if out of those four, I would, they're all important, but I would say meaningful pursuit.
Mm.
You have to have something out in front of you that you're trying to achieve. You have to have something to work towards. You have to have a goal or goals. You have to have a vision to where you want to be. If without that, you're stagnant. And nobody likes to sit and be stagnant. So in order to grow, you need a meaningful pursuit. Through that meaningful pursuit, you make connections. That's how you grow. So a lot of these are very connected. But I would say that meaningful pursuit is you have to have that target that you're shooting at
Mm.
in order to, accomplish the things you want to accomplish, make the changes in yourself that you want to make, do what you want to do, achieve what you want to achieve, get what you want to get. You have to have that pursuit because I believe that feeds everything else.
Man, I love that. So I'm gonna say goodbye, but I want to say to our viewers, share this with people you know, and especially with people that are retiring. I mean, I'm 68. All my friends are retiring. Not many are working. So I'm just starting over or starting. So I don't want to retire, nor do I, can I. So I keep moving, but it's given me, like you said, that meaningful pursuit that just drives me in not in a chaotic way, but a
Right.
peaceful way. And I think people that get a hold of you and are able to access what you shared on this podcast will be better off, because if you don't, the stats say this: you die 2 years after you retire. And
Yes.
it's because you don't have meaningful pursuit of something new. You just can't you get separated, like you shared on the beginning of the podcast. You get separated from your relationships. Now you're in a different space,
Yes.
and you're just trying to you flounder until you have that meaningful pursuit. So Terry, thank you so much for sharing with our viewers the important topics that you were able to share with us today.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. And what you just said was very well said. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Terry.